everybody, and welcome to another Out in Front with Battleborn Progress this week. We are so excited to be unveiling our legislative report card today, which details key bills that we followed and that we were grading all of our Nevada legislators based on with their voting records. So if right now you go to nvprogressreport.com, you'll see our full legislative report card for the 2023 legislative session and the two special sessions that followed, not just one, we had to get two in there. We are so proud of all of the work that our team put into this, especially Maria-Teresa, who will be joining me in just a little bit, to provide accountability and transparency to community members throughout the entirety of the legislative process this session. We applaud legislative leaders like Senate Majority Leader Nicole Cannizzaro and Assembly Speaker Steve Yeager for their leadership on key issues like public education funding, reproductive care, housing affordability, healthcare access, and climate policy, just to name a few. And while Governor Lombardo signed some key bills into law, like SB 131, which you'll see on our report card, which codified former Governor Sisolak's executive order protecting out-of-state patients and providers from being criminalized for providing abortion care here at home, we also saw him veto crucial gun bills like Senator Dallas Harris's SB 171, which sought to prohibit anyone convicted of hate crime from owning, purchasing, or possessing a firearm for 10 years. And we are so excited to be joined by the senator tonight. We're also going to be joined by Senator Melanie Scheible, who championed key pieces of legislation to advance gender-affirming care with bills like SB 163 and SB 153. And we'll hear more about those pieces of legislation in just a little bit. We'll also be joined by Assemblywoman Natha Anderson to discuss some key bills in the Assembly that we followed this session. But before we go to our amazing legislators, and thank you all so much for joining us, I also think I saw Assemblywoman Clara Thomas in the chat. Thank you for joining us. I want to bring in my friend, our Deputy Director, and the brains behind the report card, Maria-Teresa. Maria, can you tell us about the process of creating this report card and how we chose these bills in particular to grade our legislators?
Yes, so we have a yearly process of drilling down the hundreds of bills that we monitor throughout the session, and internally, so you all get the inside baseball, we throughout a legislative session have hundreds of bills that relate to all of the issues that we work on or that our community members care about, flag for us, etc., or that we help with partners. And what we do throughout the session is we have them split up into different priorities. Very high priority, like our gun bills that we worked on with, for example, Senator Harris. And then we have high priority ones where we're very supportive or very opposed, and they're very high priority either way. And then things that are medium priority, low priority, etc. So we kind of tier things out because you can't do everything. Wish we could. But we tier things out, and then what we do after the legislative session is we go from there and narrow down what was really the extremely high priorities for us. Usually it's the bills that passed both chambers, because we do grade both chambers, the Assembly and the Senate, and it would be kind of weird if we grade the senators on one thing and Assembly members on another thing. And so we take bills that pass both chambers, but we also include the bills that maybe, died in committee or died in one house, or bills that maybe weren't really high priorities for us, but are important and part of the narrative. So we take all of this information and we kind of divide them up into those categories, things we specifically grade people on, and then things that are priority, but we didn't grade people on, but you should know about because either they're really cool or really bad. And we let you know kind of where they ended up in the legislative process.
I also want to give you some major props for building the entire website this year, literally from scratch. I think in maybe less than 2 weeks, you really killed it. So congratulations on that. I want to go ahead and bring in Senator Dallas Harris to discuss SB 171, the first veto from Governor Lombardo this year. It was a very impressive feat. Can you tell us, I know we've had you on to talk about the bill before, but if you want to go ahead and just give yourself some love for championing that bill and talk about it a little bit, I'm going to go ahead and bring you on now.
Yeah, hi. Thank you so much for having me. Always love to do Out in Front. Always love talking about Senate Bill 171. I think personally, this is like the epitome of common sense gun violence prevention, right? When we hear often people on the other side of the political aisle say, oh yeah, well, if it's common sense, we support that. This would have been that bill, right? It said, if you have committed a hate crime, we're going to take your gun away for 10 years. If that hate crime included violence, then we're going to go ahead and take it away permanently. California has a similar bill. It's actually a bit stronger. Their bill was retroactive. And so after their bill passed, if you had committed a hate crime in the last 10 years, they actually went and took your gun from you. Ours was going to be prospective. But unfortunately, our governor did not see fit to protect any Nevadans from gun violence prevention that day. And so he vetoed my bill along with the other two from the champion of all champions, Assemblywoman Natha.
And her bills, AB 354 and 355, are also on our list of bills that we took into consideration when grading our fabulous legislators. Well, mostly fabulous. Can you provide us with kind of an overview of Assembly Bill 354 specifically, and the implications for ensuring safety and security at polling and voting locations? And if you wouldn't mind giving folks a rundown of the ghost gun language fix that was in there as well, and how it addressed the issue, or would have addressed the issue, of untraceable firearms.
So let's start with the polling place protections, right? Again, common sense. We wanted to ensure that no one, especially for the purposes of intimidation, was bringing a firearm into a polling place to harass either people there to exercise their constitutional right to vote, or the workers there helping us put into practice our constitutional right to vote. Again, unfortunately, I'm not quite sure why the governor felt that bill, I guess, went too far in protecting people. I don't know. I don't dare kind of get into his mind. But that was a really sad day for me as well to see that not go along, especially when we know in 2022, we saw all of this kind of intimidation, folks in masks and in camouflage with not just handguns, but assault rifles, right, staying in front of polling places, clearly intimidating folks. I don't know if there's anything much more intimidating than a big gun. So that is a bill that I think he definitely should have signed. I don't know how familiar folks are, but in the last legislative session before this one, so in 21, Assemblywoman Natha ran a bill to attempt to deal with the issue of ghost guns, right? These are these guns that you can purchase in the mail. It comes to you in a little kit. You can assemble it and boom, it is a deadly weapon. Essentially, we know that there were folks who were underage who were able to order these online. And one of the big problems is that they are not serialized, which makes it hard to track, right? Lots of criminals are not committing crimes with guns with serial numbers on them. They're scratching them off, or at this point now, they can make ghost guns that don't have them on to begin with. Of course, after that legislation was passed, a lawsuit was filed. People, for some reason, don't like it when we try and make them safer sometimes. And so someone challenged that law, and we wanted to make sure that we put it on solid footing. And so Assemblywoman Natha put that fix in her bill, along with some issues on owning assault rifles when you are between the ages of 18 and 21.
Yeah, and we would have loved for the governor to sign all three of these bills into law, but unfortunately that was not the case. I do want to bring in Senator Scheible, though, to talk about some bills that he did sign into law, shockingly. Senator, do you want to talk about your bills that advanced gender affirming care in the state and your reaction to the governor's decision to not veto them, not get rid of them? Oh, Senator Scheible. There you go.
I was having some technical difficulties. And I also want to echo my colleagues' remarks and thank you for having me on Out in Front. It's great to see you. And I'm so happy that people are still interested in the work that we do up at the legislature. And I think as I was trying to turn back on my camera, you were asking about SB 163 or 153?
I believe let's start with SB 163 and your reaction to the governor's decision to not nix that bill.
You know, sometimes when people read a bill, it helps them to understand that bill. And when you understand a bill, sometimes it becomes easier to support that bill. So I think that SB 163 is the prime example of that happening in the state of Nevada for a lot of people. For all of my colleagues, or for many of my colleagues, as well as the governor. And SB 163 is a gender affirming care bill that ensures that every Nevadan who has health insurance will not be denied coverage by their health insurance for any particular procedure or treatment based on their gender identity. So in other words, if an insurer covers a particular treatment, then they have to cover it for everybody, not just cisgender folks, regardless of why the person is being prescribed that particular treatment. And it also adds in some other protections, you know, ensuring that insurance companies don't do blanket denials or simply refuse to include gender affirming care providers in their networks. And so that is going to help a lot of folks in Nevada access care.
That is incredible. And I also want to talk about SB 153, which also protect transgender folks and gender nonconforming folks that are in custody. Can you elaborate on the goals of that bill and the significance of it? And how you sought to improve the lives and experiences of folks that are in the criminal justice system?
Yeah. SB 153 is another one of my favorite bills, and it says that the Department of Corrections will create a written policy around how they treat, how they handle, how they interact with folks who are gender non-conforming, gender non-binary, transgender within the Department of Corrections. Of course, we're focused on people who are incarcerated, but that also includes, you know, treating staff and contractors and volunteers and family members with respect. And you know, part of the policy includes ensuring that there are training components in place for people who work at the Department of Corrections. And so the idea with SB 153 is not to be overly prescriptive and say that, you know, one size fits all and every transgender person who comes into custody or every non-binary person in custody needs X, Y, and Z things. The purpose is to say that the Department of Corrections has to put on paper what their policy is. If that policy is, as it should be, everybody gets an individualized assessment when they enter. Everybody has access to a PREA coordinator. Everybody has access to file a kite or send a message out to admin. Then that's the policy that has to be in place. And the reason that it was important for us to put this into law is that when the government violates somebody's rights while they are incarcerated, their remedy is to file a lawsuit. But you can't file a lawsuit based on an idea or based on a general sense of fairness. You have to be able to tie it to a particular law or a particular policy that's being violated. And so what SB 153 does is it says that through the policy, there will always be a state level protection for people who are incarcerated to ensure that they are being treated with respect and equality to, you know, to the extent that we are able to do that in the Department of Corrections.
Well, thank you so much for your advocacy with both of those bills. I know you work with some of our very favorite partners, Gender Justice and Silver State Equality. We love them, and we are so stoked that you were able to get those two bills across the finish line. I want to bring in Assemblywoman Natha Anderson now that she's joined us. Thank you so much for joining us, Assemblywoman. How are you?
I'm doing well, and so good to see you, Senator. It's been the first week of school, so you guys are actually lucky. My hair is not all pulled out. So yeah, it's good to see you. I'm so sorry I'm late though.
No worries at all. That's why we wanted to time it to our report card, you know, the start of school, people getting their grades. So Well, thank you for joining us. And now Roxy wants to join us as well.
No, I've got my orange fur kitten, or my orange fur baby as well, that will more than likely walk by it. I think the senator has been on one or two other Zooms that she's also had a chance to see Paddington. So yeah.
Oh, we love it. So I want to bring you into the conversation to talk about a bill that we used in our report card this year that unfortunately the governor did not like. He vetoed it. Assembly Bill 250 introduced regulations on drug pricing and would have lowered the cost of prescription drugs across the board for folks here in Nevada. Can you give us a brief overview of that bill? I know you supported it. And it was a bill that we were really passionate about, and we're really bummed that the governor did not sign it. I'm going to pass it to you to talk a little bit about it.
Thank you so much. Well, and I want to make sure to give the credit to where it should go to, which is first Assemblymember Considine. She was the one that carried it. She had to take on a large amount of battles. I was so proud to be able to put my name next to it. And then also former Lieutenant Governor Kate Marshall was very much instrumental in also bringing forward this language. So basically what it is it's utilizing the idea of having a certain number of pharmaceutical aids, drug, let's just be realistic and call them what they are, medically helpful drugs that would be free for everyone, not just those that qualify for Medicare and Medicaid. It would be for everybody. And as the federal law right now has it, we're going to know exactly which pharmaceutical items those are. Probably in the next few weeks, we will find that out. And then we'll be able to utilize that to help people over a certain age. Well, this bill would have allowed it to be for everybody. Because quite frankly, if you are suffering from diabetes and you need insulin, it should not only be if you're 68 that you should get it at the cost that other people would get it, or for a discounted lower cost. Or if you are in need of, let's say, the cancer drugs that are currently being discussed as well. Again, it should not matter if you're 14, 44, 74. Everybody needs that help. And so this was a way to be able to say, your age does not matter, the qualifications for it. We want everybody to get these same benefits of what is happening at the federal level, in this case in particular, when it comes to pharmaceutical help. And I'm not comfortable saying just drug, like very specific items, because there's so many different ones. And basically, this is something that's happening nationally. It will, again, we'll know the exact items in the next few weeks. I believe it's at the end of September that we're supposed to know that. I don't have the exact date in front of me. And then the cost and everything of how exactly the process, that's going to take a little bit of time. But before the next legislative session, everything would be in place. Well, we were trying to be forward thinkers, because I don't know about you, but I'm kind of getting a little bit sick of Nevada being like, oh, hey, look, we could have done this 6 months ago. So instead, we're going to do it now. And so we were jumping on the idea and being like, okay, we're going to have this ready to go. And it was a little bit of a discussion because if you'll notice, and actually your next question is about this, so I will not jump forward for it. But there's so many other elements that we need to talk about with it, that it's not just as simple as, here you go, this is what your doctor wants. And so we were trying to get ahead of it and trying to be forward thinkers and progressives, and being aware of how we can help each other, not based upon your age, not based upon your economics, just helping each other. So that's why AB 250 was so important, I think, to all of us. And I know that all of us have somebody that we all care about. Some of us, it might be a friend. Some of us, it might be an acquaintance. Some of us, it might be a family member that we have either, all of us have family members that we choose, and all of us have family members that we're fortunate enough to be born into. But we've all had a family member that have suffered in some way because of the astronomical high cost of pharmaceutical. And this was a way to start to work on it. Yeah, I think that's it in a nutshell. Obviously, it was a pretty long and lengthy hearing. So if you want, I can go over all 2 hours of it. But
I think we can avoid that. But I appreciate the offer.
I'm good too.
Like you mentioned, huge shout out to Assemblywoman Considine and Lieutenant Governor Kate Marshall. They were champions for that legislation.
Yeah.
Oh, and here's Roxy, who's also passionate about prescription drug pricing.
Don't be thinking that our pets are not incredibly important to our mental health, but they also realize the importance of allowing something else to take over to help out those things. So let's just also, he was thinking the same thing, I'm sure.
Well, so I will go to my next question. We mentioned it. So Section 2 of AB 250 designates that a violation of Section 1 with the drug pricing limitations allows victims to take legal action.
Mhm.
Could you detail that provision and how it empowers individuals and strengthens consumer rights?
Thank you so much. So I am not an attorney. I've never played one on TV. I never plan on doing so either. However, I think too often we, as non-attorneys, we get scared to bring up, oh, you didn't do something. Oh, well, it must have been my fault. I didn't read it correctly. And so that Section 2 is to show, no, you read it correctly. You were not being listened to, and you were not being honored. And you know what? No, we're not doing the little safety net thing. This is a way for you to be helped, and this is what we're going to do. And I think a lot of it is also based upon the federal law and exactly how the federal law is being utilized. Because again, it's so easy for us to say, well, it's in the law. And then, and I look at the incredibly passionate individuals who I get a chance to serve with that are attorneys, and how they are always ready to reach out and help each other. And more importantly, to help others that are in this boat where they are not being treated with dignity and respect. This is a way for us to be able to say, no, you will treat each person with dignity and respect. And if you don't like it, this option is there. So get over it. We got to start doing this legal action, as opposed to it having to go through, we're going to wait 2 more years for another legislative session. We're going to have to do that. We're going to go through the whole rigmarole. Let's talk about the legal actions then, because at some point we need to do that. And unfortunately, there are some in the medical field. I would not say the majority. I got to be realistic. And again, remember, I'm a teacher, so hopefully I'm naturally optimistic. There are times I'm not. But right now it's the beginning of the school year, so I'm very optimistic. I would say that there's 12% of the medical profession that's not always as up and up as they should be. And I know that there are some people that would disagree with me, but with that percentage, and think that's too high, while there are others that will think it's a much higher number. But I just think this is a way for us to be able to say, no, this is what we're trying to do, and there will be legal actions if you are not following these prescriptions. I also think the thing that was a large concern for people was, how exactly then will you offset that amount of money? Well, this should not be happening either. So we've got to figure that all out, to be consumers, and then also to be realistic patients. Don't just automatically think, well, they're going to automatically give me the best deal. So that's another reason why. I hope that answered your question.
No, it does. It definitely does. And I think that this legislative session, the governor ended up vetoing AB 250, but I think it does lay the groundwork for more protections to be passed into law in future sessions. And there's such an appetite from the people of Nevada, from what we've seen, to do something about the insane cost of prescription drugs. And
there's so many. I know that right now Senator Rosen is working on it as well, with some of the other things that are happening at the federal level. But we have to think about how we can also do this at our state level and work together with each other. And I think that's a biggie. And, this is one thing. It's many times we attempt to utilize some of the same language. So that way we can really show that we're all okay. Oh my gosh, holy High School Musical. Can you tell I teach high school, but we're all in this together. So there you go.
That's going to be definitely stuck in my head now.
Yeah. Sorry, Wildcats.
Well, I have a question that we had down for Senator Harris. Unfortunately, she had to leave for prior engagement, but I'm going to pose it to both of you, Senator Scheible and Assemblywoman Anderson. So surprise. SB 131 was a fantastic bill from Senate Majority Leader Nicole Cannizzaro, and we are actually honoring her at Celebrate Progress, shameless plug, in a few weeks for her work around abortion access and expanding abortion protections here in the state. So SB 131 was a significant step toward protecting reproductive care access, regardless of the state of origin of a patient, protecting our care providers. What does the passage of this bill and the governor's signing it into law send individuals seeking care in our surrounding states where abortion is not as easily accessible? Senator Scheible, I'm going to come to you first, and then Assemblywoman Anderson, I'm going to get your thoughts as well.
Sure. I was really proud to sponsor this bill. It's an important piece of legislation that plays a very important part of the legal landscape for abortion in America right now, because it really is unprecedented for any state to try to police the activities of its citizens or residents outside the borders of the state. And that's exactly what states are trying to do. They're trying to criminalize individuals' behavior after they leave the state of origin in order to participate in activities outside the state. And in this case, the activities they're participating in are receiving necessary medical care. And so I think that it says everything about our values in Nevada, that we've taken a position as a state that we do not allow people from outside of Nevada to tell people here what kinds of care they are and are not allowed to access. And SB 131 didn't change any of the available procedures or any of the available prescriptions or treatments in Nevada. All it does is it says that if you do not live in Nevada, but you access care in Nevada that is legally provided to you here, we will not entertain this ridiculous idea that another state can then prosecute you for having done that. And we're not playing that game. We're not participating, and we're not going to help anybody else to prosecute somebody who came to Nevada and conducted themselves in accordance with the law while they were here. And, as an attorney, as a former prosecutor, as a criminal defense attorney, the rule of law is very meaningful to me. And I think that it's a shame that we even have to clarify that in law, but I'm certainly proud that Nevada did, and that they did it for this exceptionally important topic where it is crucial. It's crucial to saving lives that people are able to access abortion care. And we've made Nevada a place where people can do that.
Yeah, thank you so much. That makes perfect sense. Assemblywoman Anderson, I'm going to come to you. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience with SB 131 and, your reaction to the governor deciding to sign that one into law?
So first of all, I'm going to say ditto to the senator's comments, because absolutely. And I only have one other thing to add. It shows that our state sees everyone is equal. Period. It does not show. How often do we have a medical procedure that is for males that has been outlawed? We don't. So our governor, pleasantly surprised that he does in fact see females as equal when it comes to medical help and also choices that they should be making. We are the only ones that should be in charge of our choices. And the fact that our state has said that very clearly with this bill and then signed into law, it clearly shows that Nevada cares about males and females. And it is not about your gender. It is about you, the person, and what medical needs you choose to have and choose to utilize. And I think that is a large issue that I was very pleasantly surprised by. And I'm going to bring my religion into it. I'm also Catholic, and I think our last governor was as well. And I think that this shows that the Jesuits, who were the individuals who I had the chance to learn from when it came to my religious choices or my spiritual choices, they installed in me the ability to question things and not just automatically assume that everybody's going to have the exact same beliefs. And that's what we should be celebrating. And that's what we should be encouraging. And that's what we should be making sure is clear to everyone. You have the right to your decisions. You have the right to make a choice, whatever choice you make. And I, as a lawmaker, And more importantly, myself as a voter I do not have the right to tell you what to think or what to do or how to be. And I think this bill clearly illustrates that, and clearly shows the passion that we should all have to make sure that we are each treated with equality and respect and dignity. So I was very happy and pleasantly surprised that that was signed into law as well. I believe that almost all the female Democrats signed on to it. And I believe that I believe all Democrats signed on to it. Because when you sit down and take a look at our party values, that is one of the things that we state. And I think most of the time we vote that way as well. So.
Yeah, thank you both so much for that, for both of your perspectives on that. Maria, I'm going to bring you in as well. You've been in this fight for a long time. I know abortion access and abortion rights is something that we not only work on here at BVP, but you also work on in your own time with the Wild West Access Fund. We really didn't know what the governor would do with, the issue of abortion at large this session. Can you tell me a little bit about your reaction to signing this bill? And what it means for, the future of abortion access here in Nevada?
It was an absolute relief and weight, kind of took a lot of weight off of the shoulders of people, especially those of us at the Wild West Access Fund, because there really was a giant question mark for months, ever since he got elected, of what does the future of helping people that need access look like, not only for those people, but for the providers, for anyone that is involved in it. And Senator Scheible and Assemblywoman Anderson were, thank you for everything that you said. And I think we mentioned that that this is about people's lives. And, I've personally, through my role in the board, have helped people get that access that they need, both, people that are here, but a lot of people that are coming from out of state. And we are having a lot of people that do come from out of state, from neighboring states, from various places for various reasons, and they deserve the right to be able to come here and get a service that's perfectly legal here without any fear. And the fear is there. It has been there for many, many cases that I've helped people with. There's also the added layer that we also see cases of people traveling here at a lot of cost to themselves, not only financially, but also to their lives, because it might be that they are facing an abusive relationship and we're having to figure out ways to get them here in the quietest way possible, or many other reasons. And this lingering question mark put a dent for a long time in sort of our long-term planning. But now we can really continue to do the work that we're doing and really tell folks that it is safe for you to be here. It's not just an executive order anymore. It is Nevada law that you will not be in danger if you come to Nevada. So come to Nevada and get the health care that you need, because abortion is health care.
Definitely. And thank you for all that you do. Not only here at BVP putting together a report card, but also in all of your free time, helping the Wild West Access Fund as well, to ensure that folks who seek abortion care are able to receive it. I'm going to go ahead and talk about the two special sessions that the legislature was forced into following the regular session. Senator Scheible, I'm going to start with you. Towards the end of session, like literally the 11th hour, the capital improvements bill was not signed by the governor, which forced the first of two special sessions. And essentially the same bill passed just, a day later, and kept all of you up there in Carson. Can you talk a little bit about that experience and what factors influence the decision to invest the time and effort to pass the same bill again if you can try to get into the brain of the governor there a little bit.
Yeah, so as always, at the very end of session, it was a race to the finish line, and it's always a difficult part of the process. There are very late nights, their tension runs high, and it's really kind of baffling what happened at the very end of session. There was the issue with the CIP budget, which we resolved during session, but then there was another appropriations bill that the Senate Republicans voted not to pass. And so when we closed out session, we're supposed to have 5 appropriations bills. We only had 4. And then we had one that had failed. And, you know, I think that it was rather embarrassing for the Republicans that the left hand wasn't talking to the right. Something as simple as the governor made a deal with us, and whether it was that he didn't talk to the Republicans in the Senate about that deal, or they didn't agree to it. It was just, you know, politics can be strategic, and there's nothing wrong with that. But there didn't seem to be a lot of strategy with the Senate Republicans and the governor splitting. And for what? It was very unclear at the time, and it ultimately, I think, didn't work. I'm not really sure who was trying to achieve what, but the Republicans in the Senate didn't get anything out of it. I think the governor was left looking like he didn't have, a strong relationship with the Senate Republican caucus. And whether that's true or not, that's what it looked like. And so I don't think that anybody really came out ahead after that happened. And it was baffling to be in the midst of it and to try really, across the aisle, we still try to think the best of our colleagues. And sometimes the best is not that they are working in our best interest, but that they have some planned in mind. And so we spent a lot of time trying to think, like, what is the end game here? What is it they're trying to accomplish? What are we not seeing about the advantage to, reneging on their deal? And it turned out that there wasn't one. It was just call it a miscommunication, call it a misstep. It was just a mistake. It wasn't strategic. And so it was an interesting experience to observe all of that. And then it was, so clearly just that. It only took a couple hours to come back into session, vote for the bill again, and be done with that part of legislating. It was interesting. I won't forget it.
It was a lot of fun to watch at home, just sitting there kind of trying to piece together what exactly was going on. Assemblywoman Anderson, I saw you came back on camera. Do you have anything you want to add about the first of the 2 special sessions?
I think the senator's comment of it was interesting is perfect, because it exactly as the senator brought up. I mean, all of us were like, what are they trying to do? I mean, we've all watched West Wing. We've all been addicted to Scandal at least once or twice in our lives. I don't know about you guys, but that was one of my go-tos during COVID. So we've all thought, oh no, there's more to it. And my gosh, it's at one point, one of my friends and I were talking about maybe we should create like a conspiracy theory bingo card and see if we can get somebody to drop it. Well, maybe it's because of this, or, but realistically, I agree. I think there was so much happening right at the end that it was just an oversight, pure and simple, of like, hey, you were supposed to do this. Oh, hey, you were supposed to do that. And I think that that's where it came from. So I so appreciated the senator's comments about it was just, people just weren't looking at everything, but we had so many conspiracy theories. It was hilarious. Like, seriously, it was like almost Onion level, the Harvard Onion with satire level, like conspiracies, and they weren't there. It was just us making stuff up.
Well, it would have been a lot of fun to hear all of the various rumors that y'all brainstormed up. Maria, I'm going to bring you in to this one as well, and then I'm going to touch on the second special session. you've been around for many, many sessions. You were guiding the team through this along with Annette. How was this ending to session and the initial special session different from processes that you've seen in the past, and what impact did it have on the legislative process?
Yeah, so I think the last time that we saw something like this over what's usually the least controversial of the budget bills, almost in a way, it's usually like the education one that's the behemoth of the budget bills that causes all the furor. But the only time that I've seen it is when Michael Roberson and Republicans walked out when they were supposed to vote on the capital improvements bill, and it was over vouchers, by the way. So vouchers just brings out the best in people, apparently. So it just shows how, with the mixture of everything that the senator and the Assemblywoman were talking about, you add this sort of weird strategy that you think is going to work, but it really doesn't, because you really haven't thought it out well. Just not work, because it didn't really work with Roberson either. And it was just absolutely faulty. It's interesting because capital improvements is probably one of the most wonky budget bills, because it, like, if you've seen it, it is really long. It can have random projects in there, like replacing locks in a prison or doing this thing that we've needed to fix for so many years. And it was just baffling for us to once again have this fight over really good programs and making that into the political football for the conspiracy that I think we were all kind of trying to figure out what's going on behind the scenes, and why is it over the poor capital improvements projects again. And so I think a word to future governors and elected officials: don't use the capital improvements budget as your political football. It should be bipartisan. It's one of those things that kind of should just pass, because it's literally infrastructure for our state and many of our state government and our state government buildings and different programs that veterans need. I'll never forget Senator Spearman telling Republicans on the Senate floor that, those of them that were voting against the capital improvements bill but yet say to support veterans is the oddest thing. And once again, it's because this is the simplest bill that you can pass. It is the most bipartisan, nonpartisan project, and yet it was used as a political football. And we had to, again, we have to constitutionally pass these things. And it was just an absolute nightmare. Just being a person watching, I can only imagine being there.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun with those the late nights leading up to the end of session, and then that initial special session was called. I'm going to talk about the second special session now, the infamous A's Stadium funding special. Assemblywoman Anderson, I'm going to start with you. So, just off the bat, neither you nor Senator Scheible voted in favor of the funding bill for the stadium. And you'll see that reflected in our report card. You're an educator and a legislator, so you have a very unique perspective. How do you weigh the potential benefits of a vote like that? Stadium development, when our schools are failing, not failing, but are underfunded, when they need assistance. What kind of was your thought process behind that vote and during that entire special?
So thank you for bringing up the idea of the thought process, because I think that we always have that first idea of, okay, this is going to be about jobs. This is great. Yay, because we always need to get more strong union jobs. There's no question in my mind that is always one of the most important things for us to do. And again, we had record investment in public education. But we still don't have pre-K education funded where it needs to be. And we still have class sizes that are huge. Do you know that today, okay, so sorry, I promise you this is part of my thought process, but it's a prime example. Today, we did our count day, our first like kind of rough count. And it happened to be my first period class, which is a smaller class of 38 students for civics. And that's a smaller class. And these are seniors, of which I'm not the shortest person in the room. And luckily I carry the most, like, no, you're going to listen to me. But I'm pretty close to the shortest person in the room. So you can imagine 38 people, as we are, there were 2 students that were absent, so there's only 36 people that we were waiting to do the count for. And I was happy that it was that class, because that's a smaller class. The good news is my other class is 40 and 39. But and then my creative writing class, people are like, hey, there's a lot of writing and it's creative. I'm like, it's in the title. But you've got like 30 people in that class. I don't know how I'll be able to do all that grading. I don't know how I'll be able to return those things. I'm looking at counselors that have 400 people, 450 on their caseloads as counselors. And there's a few reasons why. Yes, we don't have the funding. And again, I just want to say, though, how proud I am to be a member of the Nevada State Legislature that invested as much as we did. But one reason why we do not have an ongoing funding source is because we continue to give tax breaks. And that's what one of these things are. And it's for 30 years. And I kind of looked at that when I was looking at the amount of time that all of these items would be, the different tax items or incentives would be given 30 years. That means this year's kindergartner, their grandchild, potentially. Hopefully not, because I don't want to have a 15-year-old having kids. So let's go with maybe their child, their youngest child, before that will be graduating from high school, before we start seeing any of that money coming towards our schools. Kindergarten, this year's kindergartner, their child will more than likely be graduating from high school or entering high school before we start seeing that. That was number one. Number two, I was looking at what was happening with the universities and how much money was going to them. Because yes, I'm K-12 and I'm proud to be a K-12 teacher. However, I want my students to be able to go to a strong Nevada system, and we have an excellent system. Go Wolfpack. Although I like UNLV Rebels too, but I like Wolfpack more. But I also like TMCC. And I also like the community college up in Elko, and I like the one that's in, we need to also be investing in our upper university system. We need to stop talking about K-12 and start talking about K-20. And until we start getting the funding for it, we cannot do so accurately. So that was the second reason why. The final reason had more to do with the process. We had a basically double header hearing during the session, because if you think about it, a double header is usually about 4.5 hours long. And I think we started at 4 o'clock, and I think we were out about midnight. So it was longer than a double header. And the bill was not there. And then all of a sudden it came back. And so the first 2 items had 100% to do with philosophy and 100% to do with the funding and how we need to start funding our schools in a better way, in a more accurate way. But the third, it has to do with a 120-day session. We've had a broken funding system for our schools for how long? My father, I think, was a kindergartner. My gosh, that kindergarten thing keeps on coming back. In 1946, the last time we actually funded our schools correctly. When did we get a special session to start funding our schools accurately? So at what point do we start saying this is our priority? We became a state for very specific reasons. The votes, and the Civil War, we'll do that debate another time. But if you take a look at the Constitution, education is the first thing that's listed. There's a reason why. And at some point, we need to start making that our priority. So that's why I voted no.
Yeah, I appreciate that perspective. Our schools, having been, in CCSD, anything that diverts funding away from our public schools is just something that.
Well, and like I'm seeing what's happening right now, and I know this is not a question that's being brought up, but I'm seeing obviously on social media and other things. We need to start really talking about, are we going to be talking about it, or are we going to be doing something about it? And we did something as a legislature. Now let's see if the school districts will start to do something too.
Yep. Senator Scheible, I'm going to bring you in here too. If you want to go ahead and talk a little bit about your thought process behind your vote for SB1, the stadium bill. And then Maria, I'm going to come to you also. I know you were right there fighting. So I'm going to get your perspective as well. But Senator, I'm going to start with you.
Sure. I'll try to keep it short because there's a lot I could say about that whole process. But I will say that going into it, I tried to be open-minded. I do understand the benefits that a stadium can potentially bring to a community. And I, like the idea of having pro sports in Nevada. I like the idea of people coming here and spending their money and choosing Las Vegas as the location where they take a vacation. In this particular case, I didn't think that the terms of the deal were very favorable to Las Vegas or the state of Nevada. And as the process went on, they only got worse. And so in particular, the issue that really kind of solidified my no vote was that we had been discussing a package deal the whole time we were discussing this, where Clark County would take out bonds and they would be backed by the state of Nevada. At the 11th hour, the Legislative Council Bureau issued an opinion that it was unconstitutional for the state to back the bonds of the county. And so rather than restructure the deal, the proponents simply amended the language, which to me was incredibly concerning because one of two things was happening. Either they weren't really changing the structure, they were only changing the language to comport with the technical requirements of the Constitution, but still violating the spirit of the Constitution. That's option one. Or option two, they really were changing the structure of the deal, but telling us that they weren't. So I could not get past that in order to support the proposal. And I think that I am still anxious to see how that legal question is answered, if it's ever answered, about the last minute changes that were supposedly made to bring the proposal into compliance with within the boundaries of the Nevada Constitution.
Yeah, we'll be interested to see that as well. Maria, I'm going to come to you. This was your second stadium fight, I think, right? not third, fourth, fifth. Making sure that there were others I was not aware of. How did this one differ from 2016 with the big old Roomba down on the Strip?
Yeah, so we had similar presenters, so that was kind of the same. What really differed, and we're seeing it right now, is that we had elected officials extremely prepared and ready to hold proponents of this their feet to the fire and ask them the questions that needed to be asked. I think, both stadium specials had issues in the process and in the way the proponents presented things, but I really want to thank Senator Scheible, Assemblywoman Anderson, and the rest of the legislators that really stood there and asked really hard questions. And I remember we were talking with our former boss, Annette, who we said, you know what, even if this thing passes, which it did, and it gets signed, which it did, we had legislators asking really tough questions. And this thing had to be rewritten and it had to be brought back. And we had great moments where I think the presenters were noticing that this wasn't really a given, unlike the Raider Stadium or Allegiant Stadium. That one definitely felt a lot more rushed. It was kind of the first time that we were doing this, and it really did feel really rushed, legislators wanted to get out of there. And this one felt like legislators, even though it was the second special session that they were there for, third back to back, that they were not going home without at least asking the really hard questions and going down without a fight, which, we talked about why that's important, because we came back out of COVID and got to have significant education funding and putting money back in place where there were cuts, and now here we are giving another tax giveaway, and in a very dubious way again. And we finally got an actual debate about that, and that's the difference. And I want to thank all the legislators that participated in that.
Yeah. And it was a sight to behold. It was my first ever stadium session. I learned so much from you and Annette the entire process. And we'll see how it shakes out. We'll see, if that stadium ends up getting built. I mean, props to all of our labor and union brothers and sisters who will be having solid labor jobs. We are always supportive of that. But the process itself was very interesting to watch. We do have a question from the chat that I'm going to pose to all three of you, and then I'll head towards wrapping up. Lisa wants to know, for all of our panelists, what do you think was the biggest surprise during the legislative session? Senator Scheible, I'm going to start with you.
All right. I think this session was full of surprises, big and small. I don't want to, pick a cop out, but we were all pretty surprised when Cole was born in May, because he wasn't supposed to arrive until June. And so when we all heard that, I had to do kind of a double take. And it was, even though we knew it was a possibility, and we obviously knew that Senator Cannizzaro was expecting another kid, and that, that kid could come early, I hadn't really considered what that would be like. And so to watch her rise to the occasion and bring that baby on the floor to committee, into caucus, was just so much more inspiring than I even had expected. And I've always loved and admired Nicole very, very deeply. And so I was surprised that there was, even more that she could do to impress us.
Yeah, that was, so I'm in my third trimester now, and I'm suffering here with like the heartburn. I don't know how she made it through an entire session. Made it through an entire session, had baby, finished the session, and then went into two specials. I have no idea how that happened. She's incredible. So yeah, props to her. And she's my senator, so I was very proud. Assemblywoman, I'm going to come to you. What was your biggest surprise this session?
I mean, how do you go up against the badass known as Senator Cannizzaro and Senator Cole as well? Because how great was it that second day? I mean, what was it? I think the baby was 3 days old when she was back, and it's like, seriously, that's, man, whew, I am a woman. Here we were, and so what a great role model she is for all of us. There were so many surprises. I think, I think one of the big surprises for me was not only the sheer number of vetoes, but the inability to try to work them through beforehand. And we had tried, maybe because of just other experiences I've had, I've always seen us all, I mean, there are definite differences between the parties, don't get me wrong, but we really do try to do the work together and be aware of it. I think that the some things that happened towards the end of session, that when you get a vote in a subcommittee that's everybody's on board, and then literally the next day one party's against, you're like, wait, how did this happen? It's that sort of thing that I think was I mean, I'm not so naive not to believe that there's not, partisanship and everything, but this was pretty bad at times. And yet how often also our Republican colleagues would be like, but don't be mad at me. Oh, okay, well, I am, type of thing. And so I think that was something that was the most surprising to me. Not surprising to me though, and I think something that we don't talk about enough is what we stopped. I mean, we as a Democratic majority of both houses, there's a lot of things that we did that was really great. And there are a lot of things that never got a hearing. It was pretty great too. And I think we need to recognize that and celebrate that as well. Yeah. And so my last thing that I was most pleasantly surprised by was how we as Democrats, whether we are in Senate or the Assembly, we can have different points of view, but we can all, be family and still disagree with each other, but yet break bread the next day and be like, all right, let's just get the work done, which is what we need to do.
Yeah. And y'all got it done. Oh, Ginger agrees. You guys got
and
it
Ginger
done.
Agrees. So life is good if Ginger agrees.
Yes, she gave you a little shake to
right.
She agrees. Maria, I'm going to come to you. What were you most surprised by this session compared to your previous sessions?
I am surprised I have a three-way tie agreeing with the fabulous Senate Majority Leader and fellow Stan Azaro. And if people didn't watch the stream, like us weirdos that watched the whole stream all the time and lived on Twitter and saw the pictures, she did all of that in heels too, which I always am amazed by whenever I would go into the building or I'd watch her walk in. How are you doing that? I'm not pregnant and I can barely walk in heels. That's fabulous. But then the other part of the three-way tie is one, that the voucher folks were surprised that the Democrats held the line and didn't fall for their voucher scams once again, and did their constitutional duty to actually fund public schools over vouchers. And which, by the way, shout out to the interim finance committee for finding out why there's this whole mess with opportunity scholarships. It's because one company took the money. And finally, what was surprising was Senator Jeff Stone. We talked about SB 171 and a much more restrictive law in California. Senator Jeff Stone voted for that more restrictive law in California, but voted against SB 171. I know that we were all kind of fairly surprised because we were reading both bills back to back and we were going, he has to vote for SB 171. He voted for this one and this is retroactive, and he didn't. And that was surprising because, I guess he wanted to do things the quote Nevada way, which is Joe Lombardo's way, not the actual Nevada way. But that's what was most surprising to me.
And I remember our team looking up the text from the California bill and his voting record to be like, oh no, he'll vote for it. Don't worry. Nope, was not the case. So Jeff Stone, if you're watching, what are you doing, bud? All right, folks, we are going to wrap it up there. Thank you so much to our two senators, Senator Scheible, Senator Harris, for joining us. Y'all are incredible. Assemblywoman Anderson, it is always a pleasure to have you here. I know you always tell me to call you Natha. I'm not going to do that. It's Assemblywoman Anderson. And Maria, thank you, of course, for all of your hard work on the progress report. I'm going to have our folks drop it in the chat now so people can go look at it and then tell Maria what a genius she is for making that website from freaking scratch. And we will see y'all soon. Thank you all so much for joining us. Have a good one.
Thank you.
Yay, we did it. Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.
You're the best.
Call anytime.